Hey, this is Vu, and I was going to make 4 levels of pistols. However, I've realized that high-level pistol rounds are basically just aim maps, so instead, I'm going to try and make it so you never lose another pistol round again. Unless too many people watch this video, in which case we've got a paradox on our hands. I've noticed at lower levels, people really misunderstand the basic concepts of what you want to be accomplishing on pistol round. When you get to FACEIT 7 or 8, these things start disappearing and it really does turn into an aim map. However, at these lower levels, there's a few things you need to be keeping in mind. First off, we've got Chimera, who's going to be going into window here and trying to hold middle. Now, he takes this angle here, which is fine, but you do have to be a little bit careful because if you've ever played window, you know Glocks have a 100% instantly dink you in the head rate when they swing out top middle, so you want to be holding a narrow angle or jiggling it or something. Now, rotating his way over to A, he's going to give his teammate a nice little hello, get to know him before they try and defend the bomb site, totally fine, then rotates over, and this is where we start having problems. Now, a typical rotate might include him going through CT to ticket when he's got early information on what's going on at A. However, because there's a teammate here with him, I do appreciate him going jungle, and they double up trying to shoot people on the cross. However, if you're going to do that, you need to be in a different location. When you're looking at pistols, there's a few things you want to be trying to accomplish on that CT side that are very important to get things done. First, you want to be making sure you're either fighting angles where you can take a shot or two and fall back so you don't get overwhelmed, or you want to take angles where there's cover very close by. You also can be fighting angles directly with teammates, in which case you can play together and really mow down a lot of opponents attacking you at the same time, whereas otherwise you'd get overwhelmed. And you want to make sure, obviously, that you're fighting at longer ranges. And the angle he's got here doesn't really help with a lot of those. First off, this angle here is close to this smoke here that your opponents are likely to try to jump through. You have to question why the hell did they throw a stairs smoke and nothing else? Well, a lot of the time you'll see competent opponents will try and jump through that and catch you off guard when you're trying to rotate in through jungle with a close range engagement. As well, you're not playing in an angle that has an easy fallback route despite there being two angles very close by with a corner right next to them. Optimally, in fact, you'd be playing this angle back here. However, with the teammate already in front of it, it's normal not to be there. From this position, he easily could have gone into the corner on the right here, which wouldn't have given the greatest crossfire with his teammate where they're both shooting at the same enemy at the same time. However, it would have given him a corner to fall back to should a player have pushed through the smoke, or he could have gone to this angle here, which gives a slightly better engagement with his teammate, however is a little bit closer to the smoke and the uncomfortable engagement. As well, it gives you an uncomfortable fight potentially against a guy coming out palace, and you can't necessarily avoid that. Now, either one of those would have been fine, but I don't like him playing here because there's no real fallback option, and if someone comes through the smoke and he's not ready, he's just dead. What I really don't like, though, is he's going to wait a little while, allow his opponents to get close, and then run out forward and out. You'll notice he didn't just run out, he ran forward and out, which means there's no getaway option possible. You want to make absolutely sure that you're as close to cover as physically possible when you're fighting against Glocks, so you don't get overwhelmed like this and just destroyed. He doesn't die initially, but he gets taken to 7. It's easy pickings for them afterwards, and they lose the round. Now, I wanted to stay on Chimera's POV for one more round here on the T-side pistol because he doesn't play to his strengths. Now, I mentioned the CT side strengths being, long range, isolating 1v1s if you can, having close fallback angles. Well, obviously that means on the opposite side, you want to try to prevent them from doing all of those things. You want to try and stay grouped up together. You want to try and overwhelm and swarm your opponents with numbers. Try and get close range if you can. Try and prevent them from doing anything they want to accomplish. What the opposite of doing that is this, where he's going to be working picks long range against USPs. This is the direct opposite of what you want to be doing, and it always hurts me a little bit when these things happen and players are rewarded. Fighting ramp to stairs, fighting ramp to triple, these are... you know, he could be pushing up on this guy. You know, sometimes it's okay. The guy is triple. You're trying to get out. You fight an angle like that where you got the kill. However, he was just jiggling him and trying to take this straight up gunfight against him for far too long. You almost always want to be closing the distance when you have a Glock on pistol round. You want to be getting up in their grill. Don't give them time to think. Don't give them space, or they'll pick you off one by one. So instead of getting this into a bunch of demos being reviewed, I wanted to take a look at the points I've already made and show you how you can execute those perfectly. Now, there's a couple extra things to mention from the team front as well. Now, from the individual front, obviously you have trying to find angles where you can take a shot like this and fall back over to B potentially, or at least you have a spot where you can fall back into cover after taking a couple of shots and hopefully get some support like back plat on B here. As well, you're looking to obviously fight at long ranges, and you're looking if you can to fight with a teammate who's posted up on the same angle, because you're almost certainly going to get the kill if that's the case. On the team front, you're looking at trying to gamble stack a little bit more than you would expect. Because the T side has the initiative on pistol rounds and they can overwhelm very easily with 5 Glocks, and you don't have any spray down or really big delay capabilities when you don't have smokes and nades because you've got armor, because otherwise you're getting aim punch, you want to try and consider gamble stacking areas and overwhelming with pure force. That's why you sometimes see things like heavy pushes up middle with 3 or 4 players. If you're CT side and you run 4 players into their entire team, there's a high chance you're going to win that because your guns are just better. And if you don't, you've cleared out a section of the map and you can easily flank together. And again, even though Glocks want to overwhelm single USPs, they're not great when they go into a straight up 5v5 from something like bottom middle on Inferno against top middle on Inferno. That's why that's a common play as well. So if we go through these individually, when you're looking at spots where you want to take a shot and fall back, you're looking at taking some semi-aggressive engagements so that you can take 1 or 2 shots and quickly reposition and do so again and again and again. This is what oppers often excel at when you're looking at, you know, real gun rounds, where you're going to a spot like even here, take a shot, quickly jump back. You can come over to a spot like this, you can take a couple of shots, fall back, and you can come over to something like doors, do the same thing over and over again. This is an S tier way to play around as an individual. You've got all of the advantages you could possibly want if you can play that out. The unfortunate bit is that not every angle is capable of doing that. You know, maybe you'd want to come to this angle here to take a shot and fall back, but where are you falling back to? Nowhere. That means you kind of have to play angles back here, like back plat is very common in these types of situations because you don't have anywhere to reposition to, but you are giving yourself a very long range engagement. You are playing, you know, a spot where they can only shoot your head and they're going to have to headshot you twice, but you can headshot them once to get the kill, so you have a pretty clear advantage. You can try and delay for a teammate as well, or if your teammate has any utility, they can flash for you. All these sorts of things can be very helpful. But spots like this are typically kind of second tier spots. This one specifically is probably still a very top tier spot, but when you're thinking about spots that have no fallback option, they're typically going to be a whole lot weaker when you're playing against pistols who are very likely to overwhelm you if you don't have a fallback option. So, you know, a spot like car here might feel really nice, but it can go from good to terrible very quickly if they 5-man peek you and what do? You crouch down, okay, but then you uncrouch into 5 people looking directly at you, right? It can get very awkward very fast because they can swarm so easily. So it's not that a spot like this isn't strong, it's just that it's not the best possible angle you could take. And that's how these things end up devolving into these team-based strategies where you do things like double boosting players onto cat to fight in middle. What you've done is you've gambled your way off of long to take a long-range engagement on cat where you can double up, you can try and 2v1 people, or you can get quick headshots and then fall back to multiple different safer angles before eventually you have to take a straight-up fight and you have to just try and brawl it out and win the engagement. And that's where sometimes things can definitely go wrong. Now, you understand the big picture of these situations and how you can play them out, but there are some intricacies that can be very relevant and some mistakes people often make. Now, going through a bunch of pistol demos, the biggest mistake I see lower ranked players have is they stand completely still and or they spray their entire clip. And, you know, you do have a pistol, and you would think that spraying really isn't a thing, but if I show you and I just shoot my pistol as fast as possible, I've got bullets going everywhere. This is not a way to get things done. This is not a way to maximize the strength of the USP. In fact, you're really minimizing how good a USP or P2000 is if you're shooting it that fast. You actually do need to take your time and actually aim your shots. And that can be very tough if your aim is terrible, which is often the case, but you do need to get it done. And you need to make sure you're doing so while moving. The reality when it comes to movement on pistol round is actually kind of depressing. It's not about how easy you are going to be able to hit your opponent, because you're really only going to be hitting them in the head. They're basically just a moving, floating head at some point. That's all that matters. And a moving head is always going to be incredibly tough to hit, except for, you know, with nice little flicks and just good aim. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to make it so your opponent can't hit you. Because if you make your head stationary and easy to hit, their head is, you know, they're not going to be moving as much. It's not going to be as hard for you to hit them, but that's kind of irrelevant. So what you do is, rather than stopping to be a bit more accurate, you move more. You actually just strafe left and right, you crouch up and down, and you try and make sure you're never moving in one direction for long enough for your opponent to recognize that pattern, you know, subconsciously, and flick directly to your head and get the free kill. You try and make your patterns as random as physically possible. And, you know, that's the rub, man. Now, one of the few shortcuts you can have to really kind of get over and avoid a lot of these problems is doing something gimmicky while your team does a bit of a stack. So something that I've seen that is very effective would be to smoke off tunnels here and play close with a P250 or a CZ I've seen, or a 5.7 or dualies if you like them. The reason this is effective is because your opponents will have to jump out directly on you, and as long as you're not playing directly on top of it, where they're going to jump past you, you can likely get 2 kills. And if your team is doing something like a 4-man mid push or a triple cap boost, where they're on a timer to flank your opponents, you've basically put them in a situation where there's a no-win scenario. They're trying to 5-man rush something, you're making it so if they do come out on your solo player, they're going to have 2 people die. That's a pretty big win for you. This is something you can do, and it's pretty much the only thing you can do to negate some of these 5-man pushes, but only for a short period of time, and then you're totally nerfed because you have a P250 or a CZ with no armor. And that's terrible. And I know what you're thinking, Vu, why aren't you talking enough about T side? You're talking all about CT, why not about T? Well, the reality is T side is really just about countering CT side. If you understand what the CT side is trying to do, you try to prevent them from doing that. So essentially, you go 5 players together, you make sure you never give them time to rotate, time to swarm, time to, you know, gamble push you. You try and make sure you're giving them very little ability to do all of the things they want to do, and you're just getting on top of them and killing them, really. In any case, regardless of what side you're playing on, pistol rounds are a bit of chaos. They're a bit of added craziness to the game. There's a lot of randomness, there's a lot of gambling, there's a lot of stacking, all these sorts of things. But hey, what's a game with a little bit of randomness? It's better. The game would be better. Anyways, thanks for watching, and I hope this helped.